All right. Well, thanks everybody who have come to the live training today. I'm really excited about this one. I guess I get kind of excited about all my trainings, but this one is particularly troublesome to most people. And when I figured this, some of these details and these solutions out, man, this made a huge difference in my life. So I am super excited. I don't love that this is so, how about that? Is that better? Sorry, I'm using my phone with another computer, so I hope this works out. Anyway, I realize that paper can be such an overwhelming and just something that you feel like you can become completely buried in. And I know that, I totally experienced that, and it has been such a huge burden lifted off of my shoulders when I finally got this flow and this system going. And it was funny because the things that made a huge difference are just like I always am telling you so many times, the solutions are just these simple tweaks that just make all the difference in the world. And I just love that simple things can make such huge impact. So let's go ahead and get going. I'm hoping to keep this around about 90 minutes max, but I actually think we might be able to get through it in 60. So cross our fingers, we might be early instead of running long, which is typically what we run into, right? So becoming a paper pile annihilator. The very first thing, oh, oops. Okay, now that's not good. Not letting me advance. Oh, there we go. Okay, so like I was saying, the reason why I create systems is because when you have a problem and you need a simple solution, 99 out of 100 times, it's the creation of a system. A system, oops, a system, oh my gosh, I can't see. I'm struggling with this. The system has a couple of things that is why it actually solves the problems that you have, like paper or getting the housework done or getting organized or managing your time, all those things that seem to be something that plagues everyone. I mean, it's just human nature, right? And creating a system or having a system, one of the things it does for you is it gives you a plan. And when you have a plan where you know what's going to come next, and oops, so sorry, just one second. When you know what's going to come next, and you know what the next step is, you don't have to be worrying about things all the time. It frees up your time because you know you have a plan, frees up your mental energy because you're not trying to figure out how to do everything. It is just such a huge relief. It also provides you with steps with the next logical thing to do, which is totally stress relieving. It's that 1% principle where you only have to focus on the very next thing instead of looking at what you have to do as one big giant to-do list, right? Or one big giant overwhelming project. When you have a system, you've broken it down, having a plan, you know, defining the steps that need to be taken, and so all you have to do is focus on just that next step, that 1%, how are you going to make progress? And it makes it super duplicatable. When you create a system for something, you'd only have to do it once. It's a one-time setup. You create the system, and that system takes care of that problem that's reoccurring over and over and over, and it is literally not a problem anymore. It's just something that has to be done in your real life, right? And you already have the plan, you already have the steps, and you have it already set up, so it just runs. And that's the genius of having systems. I just wanted to kind of point those things out because I know a lot of times I get excited and I tell you, okay, I've got a system for this, and I think sometimes the reaction at times is, oh, I have to do something else, or I don't want to have to put the time into to creating that system, but I just wanted to help you start to really get that vision of how systems really simplify your life. And although sometimes the setup of a system can be time consuming, it is such a huge relief on the other side of the setup when you get it all in place and you have someone, or well, once you get everything all in place and everything's running smoothly, it's the simplicity on that other side of that complexity, which I've mentioned before, is so worth it. I know I always want to tell you, just trust me, but I just want you to trust me, and I want you to know that I'm here to walk you through each step at a time, so that hopefully we break down the actual setup to where it's super simple. And this particular system, this paper system, of managing the flow of paper through your life, is actually one of the easiest ones to set up, because it's literally something you can do in one day. So that's exciting, especially if you're like, no way, you don't know how much paper I have in my house. I'm telling you, you can set the system up in one day, and you can put the things that need to be in the system, and basically everything else I'll tell you how to take care of, like, super fast. Okay, so oh my gosh. Now, when it comes to having a good system, I've talked to you about this before. If you've come to my Productivity Ninja class, or if you haven't had a chance to take that one yet, I can always let you know how to do that one. But in my Productivity Ninja class, we talked about what a good system is. A lot of times people claim to have a good system, but I've recognized that over time I've paid for a lot of people's advice. I've read lots of books. I've gone to conferences and trainings and all these different things. And I've come to realize that there's 5 key elements that create a really good system that actually works. And no matter what system I use currently in my life, it has to have these elements. Otherwise, there's something missing. And so when you're out there looking for things to solve, whatever it is, a system or help or advice, and you're trying to weed through all the expertise out there, if you're looking for something that is really going to work, make sure it has these 5 elements. Okay, it has to be comprehensive. It needs to take everything. It needs to be complete. It needs to take everything into account. It has to be something that's not just for one portion. Like for this paper system, for instance, it can't just be how you process your mail. It has to be every piece of paper that comes into your house. It's a system that includes everything that is in this category, right? So it's got to be comprehensive. It's got to take you from start clear to finish, all right? And the second thing is, it's got to be easy to access. It's got to be easy to find the information you need, or it can't be so complicated that once your system's set up, you can't even remember how to find the things that you need to find when you need them, or it's so complicated that you can't remember what to do once you're done, right? Or once everything's set up. And that leads into number 3. It needs to have a clear plan. All the decisions are already made with a clear path to the next step. And this is going to be exciting when it comes to this paper system, because it's going to take every piece of paper that flows into your house, and there is a clear decision-making process with very simple decisions to make and very clear outcomes for every answer to the decision. Does that make sense? So you can take a piece of paper into your home, never get it lost. It's never going to get lost. You're going to be able to access it when you need it and know when it is you need it. And you're going to know when it's time to either get rid of it or what to do with it when you need to store it, if it's something that gets to that point where you have to do that, right? So it follows paper through the full life cycle of it flowing through your life. And it's got to include your system. 4th thing it's got to include is it's got to include a way to track what's been done. So whether it's what has been what you've already done, or where you need to pick up, like when you come back to it, because you don't want to have to spend time every time you are addressing something in your system or you're working in your system, trying to figure that out. It's got to be clear. So it's got to have a way of tracking. And in our paper system, it's where you move the paper and what type of file that it's in. Gives you an indication as to what needs to be done and where it goes, or what's the next thing to do. And I'll teach you how to do that. It's really easy. And this last thing is, it's got to be easy to manage. It's got to be clear what the next step is and how, a lot of times we set up organizing systems and we organize it, it looks really beautiful, and we take a picture and we post it on Instagram or whatever. And you probably think I hate Instagram because I kind of diss on taking pictures of houses and put it on there, but that's not what I mean. I just mean the picture is not the goal. The picture is a representation of, and maybe it be inspiring, but it's not the goal, right? The goal is to have a system that actually manages and moves everything through. It's not just something that looks pretty. You take a picture and then now what do you do? So your system needs to be manageable. It actually needs to work. So today we're going to learn, these is just the 4 objectives we have for this particular training. I'm going to talk first of all about what tools you need to create and manage your paper system to make it attractive and functional. So I'm going to go through the different types of things you need, and it will literally be go to the store and buy these kind of things, or jump on Amazon and you can order these things so you can do it right away. Okay, I'm going to give you really like a shopping list, or give you an idea of what you need, and you can look around your house to see if you already have the tools that would help you, put this into place right away. Then you're going to learn what to do with the incoming paper so that you don't end up with any kind of horizontal piles. Once you've got your tools and the system actually set up, you can immediately gather all your paper in your house that are on piles anywhere and immediately start putting them through your paper flow system by, I'll tell you how to do that, okay? So that you really right away, as soon as you've got the tools, you can start the system and you can clean up all your horizontal piles, and never, ever, ever is any kind of pile the necessity for any piling to happen after this. You'll have a very clear where every piece of paper is going to go as it comes into your house, and a system of what happens from there. So I'm also going to teach you, third, is how to organize everything so it flows through your system, so that you know exactly what it needs, or exactly which pieces of paper or whatever it is that you're processing, what needs your attention and where to find it when you're looking for it. Okay. And the last thing is what you really need to, and we're going to talk about what you really need to keep and what you can let go of to simplify and declutter your paper system. Super cool. Okay. All right. I've got 9 people here. How many of you, I want to stop and ask really quick, how many of you, well, here I'm going to go back. Yeah. Okay. How many of you, tell me what your biggest issue with paper is? I want you guys to tell me, is it the piles around your house? Is it you have too much? Is it, what element does it seem like you're most overflowing with? What's your biggest paper frustration? I'm afraid to throw it away. Okay. Awesome. We're actually going to address that, and you're going to feel so much more confident when you're done. Piles everywhere, coupons, kids stuff. Okay. Not really knowing what I need to keep. Not knowing what to do with it, piles around the house and not having a good place to keep important papers. Okay. So many different categories, not just yours, okay? And so missing things when your piles are all over. Okay, I hope that I read everybody. I have a bunch of good spots to put it, but it's just not organized. Okay, thanks. I wanted to get a good idea to make sure that there was nothing that no concern that of those of you watching that I'm not going to address, but it looks like I have a solution for everybody's concerns. So it's just so awesome. Making time to go through what comes in. Oh, great. Okay. Yes, every single thing that was mentioned is totally something we are going to be taking care of. So we're in good shape. I'm excited. Okay, let's get going. We're going to talk. Hopefully you guys have been able to, that you got this little paper that I sent you and you're able to print it. We're going to talk about we're going to walk through the flow of that. I'll show it on my screen also when we get to that point. But first off, I want to talk about the tools, because not always, when you're organizing or decluttering something, it's not always the best thing to go and buy a bunch of tools because you don't know exactly what you need. But this is one of those things that is an exception, because it's very clear at this beginning, as we put it together, what kind of tools you're going to need, and you already kind of have a good idea because you have all the piles. You know what comes in on a weekly basis. You know what you can guesstimate what it is you need, okay, by what we're gonna talk about. We're gonna talk about, first thing you need is going to be an inbox. Okay, so the very first thing you need is an inbox, and this can be a variety of different things. Okay, it can be a basket or a box, or a drawer. But when you're deciding what you're going to use for this, it needs to be big enough to contain what you have coming into your house. Now, it needs to contain a year's worth of what's coming into your house. This is what flows through your house on a weekly basis. Okay, so this little picture of the storage unit, or the storage unit. The storage cabinet here. This is actually what I have. This is not mine. I got a picture off online, but I have this exact same type of thing where I have 2 file drawers and a small drawer at the top, and my inbox is the top drawer. So that gives you an indication of what size I use on a regular basis. But here's some other options too, depending on the space you have. It should be attractive because you want it out in the open. It's not something you want hidden away. So I like this option up here where it has the 2 baskets. I think that's very attractive. And if you have a personal life plus a business, so if you are a mompreneur or something and you do have a home business, it's a good idea to have 2 inboxes, one for home and one for business, because you'll process them both exactly the same way, but you may not do one as often as the other. So if you have a home business, you might be processing business things 2 to 3 times a week, but maybe you don't have as much flowing in your personal life or your home life and family life. So maybe you'd only do that once a week, and we'll talk about that later. But this is one of those options, or one of this down here. This option down here with the stacking boxes. I love these because they are closed, and I did say preferably with a lid. And that is literally just to give you that peace of mind of that it's not clutter. You don't want it to look like clutter. You don't want it to be visually cluttering to you. If you don't have a ton, I did put this option as an open basket up here, because if you don't have a ton coming through every week, or you don't have a home business or something like that, or it's something that you want easy access for everybody in your family, regardless of their dexterity of whether to remember to open that's where it goes, that type of thing, then the open basket works. It's important that it's attractive enough that you're not trying to hide it, that it's in a place that's easy to access. So if your desk is in an easy to access area, then great, put it on your desk, because that's probably where you're going to process everything. But you may have, a space next to your front door that you have you know, that people come in and bring their mail and all this different types of things. So maybe it would be an inbox that you'd put next to your front door, or maybe in your kitchen, or some, you know, wherever you think is the landing space in your house. Like a lot of people have what the place that everybody puts things, you know, when you walk in the door, and it just seems like it ends up being the dumping ground for places. Is it the kitchen? A lot of people, it's the kitchen table or the countertop or something like that. Think of where it is that that seems to be in your home, and that's where you would put an inbox. And I like, if you're doing that type of thing, I like the inbox to be portable, okay? So that it's easy to take to where you're gonna process it. And usually I process things at my desk. I don't like to stand at my kitchen counter and process everything because I don't wanna have a filing cabinet in my kitchen, you know? So to me, that doesn't work for me. I'm just gonna go ahead and have my inbox in my office. But you just need to make that determination for yourself and decide what you want as an inbox, okay? Okay, the next tool that you need are action files. Now I put lots of different options here. Now this is not going to be your long-term storage. So in my example that I have of my my 2-drawer filing cabinet that I have, like the white one in the on the last slide, I have just a section in the front section of that's my action files. But if you if you would like to use something that's easier to access, I've had these before, and I think the tabletop version, like this one up here, is great. This is the qualifications that your action files need to be, okay? You only need, let's see, maybe 4 to 5 max action files. That's not a ton of files. So this could be really pretty small. It can be something that you hang on the wall, like these options, these 2 on the bottom, or it can be a tabletop versions like some of these at the top. It needs to be easy to access, or it could, like I said, it can be the front files in your file drawer. Mine are, they're not on top of my desk, they're in the filing cabinet that's under my desk, and it's just the front section of files, so they're the easiest to access. And it needs to be vertical storage. I don't want any horizontal piling that is that, like, you know, those stacking things that have slots, nothing like that. It needs to be drop in, easy to flip through. Yeah, don't, and you're not, this is, we're going to talk about this specifically, but I just put it here. I put some things on here that are not about what it looks like don't oversort, use Post-it notes, Post-its to label it first. And we're going to talk about that as we go. But you're not going to be 100% sure exactly what your action files are until you start using them a little bit. And I'm going to, when we get into the how to do your workflow system, I will explain that a little bit more. So those last 3 bullet points on here, we'll talk about those a little bit later. I just wanted you to have an image of it here in case you wanted to screenshot it so you could remember what the action file kind of characteristics are, right? So you're going to buy an inbox or gather an inbox that you have around the house. You need some kind of vertical storage for action files. And then the other tools you're going to have, you need storage files. So this is going to be either a file box or a cabinet, and that can hold 30 to 40 hanging files. Now, I know that sounds like a lot, but it really is going to simplify. It's not going to be 40 different categories, and I'll explain how that works. 24 of those files are going to be monthly files. So they're going to be January, February, March, April, May, titled with months, okay? And these months are going to be, you're going to have 2 years worth of month files. So you'll have 12 odd year and 12 even year month files. Then you're going to have a file for every member of your house. So each child, your husband, anybody in your home that you need a file for. So a file for each member of your house. And then you're going to have a few permanent files that are permanent necessary files. And when we go to the, when we talk about our flow system, you'll have to determine how many of those you need. But I'll give you examples and then you can decide how many you need. But if you have more than 40 files, you're over categorizing, in my opinion. So that's even a high. I'm thinking more like 30, 36 max. I put 30 to 40 just because it was nice round numbers. But if you have more than 40, you're way over categorizing. And you need to have a file box or cabinet that's going to accommodate those. A single file drawer is plenty, unless you're trying to put all of your taxes and things like that in the same cabinet. If you only have a single file drawer, your 30 to 40 hanging files, that should fit without any problem, because these are not going to be overflowing stuffed, ginormous stuffed files. Because this system, not only is it clear and simple when you get it set up, but it also you also have a way of cleaning it out, so that on a regular basis you are taking things in and out of it and not having to constantly just be storing things all the time. And where you're, because I used to do this, where like every year or so I would have to go through my storage or my filing cabinet, and I'd have to pull out every single file, and it would be like this thick, and I'd have piles and piles of boxes of stuff to throw away. And it was such a pain that I would skip years, and it would be like 3 years later, and I would have this overflowing storage cabinet. Do you guys, anybody familiar with that, or anybody relating to that, where it's just like so overwhelming and so stuffed, you're like, I don't even know what to do with it. You can't use it anymore. It's so overstuffed, right? Well, this is going to give you a way to actually self-clean your 12 monthly files are going to be a lifesaver to you. You're going to love that, and they are self-cleaning. And I learned that technique from a company called Freedom Filer, and you can buy their system if you want. But the thing I caution you about their system, I love their 12-month advice, and that's what I've adapted this from, the 12-month advice. But the thing that I caution people about when it comes to their full system is they over categorize so much that it becomes incredibly complicated. I'm a relatively competent system person. I claim to be a system expert, and I really feel like I own that title. And it was so complicated to set up, and I was attracted to it because they said it was a self-cleaning file system. I thought, how on earth is that possible? But I sat with that system for probably 4 years before it was tried to set it up, and I ended up throwing away half of it and just taking pieces that I'm like, okay, this works, this works, this works. It was just overwhelming. I'm just telling you that because I love some elements that they have, and I want to give them credit for that where I learned that knowledge. But I would caution you against doing your full system because it's just too complicated, and we want simple, right? We want simple solutions that are easy and that you can do today. Okay, the next thing you're going to need is special boxes or sentimental displays, and this is optional. I don't know if you can see over my shoulder. Can you see those little boxes right here behind me on my shelf there behind me? These are what I'm talking about, are like special boxes that are display boxes or something that you can store sentimental items, or and having somewhere that you hang up sentimental things. So you may not have to buy these types of things, but you can. And the reason why I don't want you to just get a clear tote that you stick under your bed is because part of this system is it has to be easy to access, right? So if it's complicated to put when it's difficult to put something away, you're not going to put it away. What are you going to do? You're going to create a pile for it. And so I love the idea of having decorative boxes that are out in the open, that are easy to access, and all you have to do is lift the lid and stuff it in, instead of having to move things from your bed or get a box out of your closet or something like that, that is, you know, some kind of a special sentimental box or something you keep tucked away. And I just love that we have so many fun decorative boxes out in craft stores or in decorating stores and stuff like that. So we have tons of options out there that you can find something that'll fit your style and, you know, the cleanliness of your decorating style or whatever. And so I'd recommend you getting some of those. And I personally, each person in my family has a special box where they are able to put cards and notes, or, you know, special little awards or things like that that they want to keep and are close to their heart. It's not something they put toys or those kinds of things in. It's really for paper. It's for cards, for notes, for awards or different things like that that are paper, sentimental paper storage. Okay, each person in my family has one, including my husband, including me. And then I have these two that are behind me. The bottom one happens to be for my extended family special things. So like if I have nieces or nephews that you know, get married or graduate from college or high school or something, I like to keep their you know, baby announcements, Christmas cards, just from my extended family. I don't keep friends and neighbors and stuff like that forever. I keep them for on display for a certain period of time, and then I put them away or throw them away after that, after I've enjoyed them for the season that they were meant for. But when it comes to extended family, I use it like kind of like our family history, where, you know, specific important milestones that you get cards or announcements or things like that. I like to keep those in. That bottom box is my extended family box, and then the top box is my immediate family for those same types of things. We put things in there like, you know, tickets to something we go to that's special, or a playbill, or well, actually we have binders for playbills, but sometimes if they're you know, that type of thing, something kind of memorabilia, that and then cards and things like that that we share within our own immediate family. That's the box that would go in, and they're not very big, but I've used those same boxes, those same two boxes, for probably I don't know, 5 or 6 years, and they're not overflowing yet. So when you stop and think about thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to have a million of these, it's not really true. They really do. You don't, if you think about it, even if you just think of how many holidays you have in a year that you get actual memorabilia for or something like that, it's not that many. So they really do last an awful long time. So anyway, the other tools that you're going to need is, I highly recommend owning a shredder, and you're going to need a planner or a productivity tool. So whatever you do that helps you schedule your time. If you've done my Productivity Ninja training and you use our Trello system, like I taught you in that, then it would be your Trello board or your planner. If you have a planner that you work off of solely and don't have an online system of some kind, okay? All right, so let's look at, now this is what you guys should have gotten in your email. Hang on one second. Let me go back. Sorry. Okay, so we talked about all the tools and how to make it attractive and functional. We'll talk about more of that. Okay, we're going to talk about next on this number 2 and number 3. We're going to talk about how to what to do with actually paper. You're going to follow the paper as it comes to your house, and then how to store it. And then we'll talk, when we get to the long-term storage, we'll talk about what you really need to keep, what you don't. Okay? So I just wanted to make sure we're on the same page here. All right, I hope you guys can see this well enough. I hope you're on your computer, so I don't need to zoom in or anything like that. If not, I would highly recommend you printing this out so you can read this well. If you're trying to look at it on your phone, you're not going to be able to read it. But you have this as a PDF, so you'll be able to print this and use this. I would print one of these and use it as your quick reference. This is the complete system, okay? And this should give you every single question you need to ask yourself and every step that needs to be taken once your question is answered, okay? So we're gonna start up here in this corner. You have your inbox. Every single piece of paper that comes into your home goes into the inbox. So if someone accidentally leaves something around the house and it's paper, you just can pick it up and confidently put it in the inbox. And you may ask yourself, well, what if I lose it? You are not gonna, anything that goes in your inbox will never be lost because all paper goes to one place, right? So don't ever be concerned that something is lost because at the very least, it's in your inbox. And it's not, because your inbox is not huge, it's not an overwhelming amount of stuff to look through. Where things get lost is when you've categorized them and you've got 17 horizontal piles in different places and you can't remember which pile you put it in. That is getting lost. Putting all those piles together and having to flip through them, not lost. Everything's in one place. Okay, so everything goes into your inbox. And on a weekly basis, if it's your personal inbox, you're going to schedule in your planner or in your productivity tool. If I were using Trello, I would have a weekly card that says sort through inbox, address inbox. I like the word address, okay? Because address means you have to just address it. You have to decide it. It doesn't mean you have to do something about it. You just have to be aware of it. You have to know what's there. So for instance, you do not have to, and when you schedule this in, you might only, and I wrote on the inbox slide back here, to schedule 15 to 30 minutes every week. So this could be 2 15-minute increments, it could be 1 30-minute increment, and I would just sort through, I would just do it for that amount of time. You don't have as much coming through your house as you think you do. And I mean, I have a home business and I have children and I've homeschooled in my life, and I do volunteer jobs, all this kind of stuff. I have a good amount of paper flow. I would be curious who would have more paper flow coming through their house. One of the things that is really awesome about this particular time in our lives is that we are in a digital age. We do not have to actually have physical paper as much as we used to. And that is such a blessing because so much is digitally stored. We don't get as much mail. We don't get as much physical copy. We go paperless with bills and things like that. So we don't have to have all of that as physical storage anymore. And so that does reduce the amount that we're coming in. Mostly it ends up being things that don't have a permanent home. There are things like notes or things from school or kids bring things home or all that type of stuff, or something that you got handed at church or at a conference or something, and you're not quite sure what to do with it because you don't have a file for that category, right? And so in your inbox, the thing you're going to ask yourself as you address each piece of paper, this is what this looks like. Everything goes in your inbox. You go to your inbox on the day that you have it scheduled to go through. You open your inbox and you pick up each piece of paper and you say, is there an action that needs to be taken? That's all you're going to ask. This is how you address your inbox. You're just sorting into 2 categories. Does it need an action or does it not need an action? Okay. You could go through your whole inbox and sort just those 2 things. Just say yes and no, make 2 piles. So now you have 2 piles, which you're not going to leave as piles. You're setting a timer for 15 minutes. And if all you can do is get through your inbox and have the yes or no piles, great. Put them back in your, put a clip on them and say, these are action piles, these are no action needed. And then the next time you address it, you can take it from there. So we're going to go through we're going to go down and we're going to talk about the yes, things that need have an action that needs to be taken. So if you just, when you go through your inbox, if you decide this has an action that needs to be taken, you ask yourself, is this action urgent and active, or is it not urgent and a passive action? So here's the difference. You can see this red list here. These are the urgent and active things. Like it may be something to pay or something that you need to read. Like maybe it's a note or something that came in that you need to really figure out. It needs to be read. Maybe it's something you need to add to tracking. Like maybe it's for, you need to add it to your tax tracking or some other kind of tracking, whether it's maybe it's if you have a home business, maybe it's when an order needs to be done, or when some kind of tracking where when the next time that thing needs to be addressed, or it could be your next party or that type of thing. Another active thing would be to schedule, like something you need to put on your calendar, or something that you need to reach out to somebody else, like maybe you're coordinating, maybe it's a committee you're on, or something like that, or maybe it's a family event and you need to talk to your husband about it, or maybe it's an invitation that comes that you need to make sure it's on your calendar and you need to buy a gift or something like that. It's something that you need to either schedule or you need to tell somebody else something about it. Does that make sense? Now these are my suggestions. You might have some, depending on your volunteer roles or that type of thing, you might have another urgent active category. But these are not categories by church, school, work. You do not categorize by that in that way. We're not putting them by category. We're putting them, the categories we're using are the types of actions that are going to be taken. Paying, reading, adding to tracking, scheduling, coordinating with somebody, and my caution here is for you to not over categorize. So back when we were talking about the inbox, I put here, not inbox, the action files, do not over sort, okay? And because this is at the very beginning, I don't want you to hesitate to set this system up. I want you to realize that there's maybe 4 to 5 actions that need to be taken. Think about what you think possibly you're for. If they're different than the ones I suggested, or if you can't think of any, just to start out with, use mine. But what I want you to do is I want you to use a Post-it note. Instead of making your label, writing on your cute files, or making the tabs permanent and printing out a label with your label maker, use a sticky note to write just temporarily the categories that I suggested and stick them on the files for right now. And this is why I want you to do this. You're going to test out if you really have things coming through your life that are those actions. You might realize you really only have 2 categories. It's either this or this. You guys hear me? So sorry. So sorry. Okay. My phone. You what? Oh, sorry. Okay. All right. Sorry. I'm sorry that we're having to do this in such a wacky way. But at least it'll still be recorded, and you guys all are so understanding and know that I'm rather flawed and raw. You just get the real me all the time, right? And hopefully even with that, we're just working towards helping each other and supporting each other in making this process. I don't have to be perfect, right? Anyway, okay, so I want you to not use knowing what action files you need to be something that hinders you from moving forward. So you're going to take your little baby step, that 1% moving forward, use a sticky note, so that it's temporary. And if you realize, oh, I wanted to say something different, you know, I can't remember how many times I changed my sticky notes before I've said, I actually really like this one. And then once you really like them, then make a permanent tab. But get your action system moving by buying what you need and using the Post-it note examples that I gave you. And you're going to schedule. So in your productivity tool or your planner, I'm just going to say planner for right now, because whether it's an online planner or you know, like Trello or something like that, or a Google list, or however you keep track of what you need to do, whether it's that or whether it's a paper planner, I'm just going to call it a planner from now on in the training. Does that make sense? Okay. So in your planner, you have every week, a certain day of the week that you plan at least 15 minutes to sort, 15 to 30 minutes to sort through your inbox. And then you also want to choose a time, and it could just be 5 minutes to work in your each action file. And as you break these down, they're not going to take as much time as you think they are, okay? So just try it out. Just test it out. 5 minutes might be too much, and there may be certain ones that you're like, we need way more than that. Recognize you're doing these things anyway. You're just not planning when you're going to do them. You pay your bills, you read your kids' notes, you do all that kind of stuff. The thing about it is you're doing it spontaneously and when you are fitting it in. And so it always feels like there's so much to do, because you know you have this undetermined amount of stuff that needs to be done, but there's no plan to when it's going to happen. And that's what gives you that feeling of that you're bustling all the time, or that you have so much to do and you're running around and there's just no time to do anything. And so putting these in a situation where you know you will get to them in a reasonable amount of time, maybe you work 5 minutes a day. Maybe it doesn't have to be only once a week. I'm not telling you you only can address it once a week, but you need to do it at least once a week. Maybe you want to sit down and spend 15 minutes every day when you first sit down at your desk, or as soon as your kids go to school and you want to do your just quick to-dos right after they are gone. Maybe you sit down and choose to do it every single day for 10 to 15 minutes. That's totally fine. All you're doing is you are sorting it into the types of actions that need to be taken, so that you don't have to worry about, all you have to worry about is that you have a time that you address those files. Every time you address a file, it does not need to be empty. That's another thing I don't know if I said about the inbox. When it comes to addressing the inbox and addressing your action files, it does not mean the whole file needs to be clear or the whole box needs to be empty. All you're doing is on a regular basis making 1% improvements. You're taking that very next step and you're spending at least X amount of time on a regular basis, and that is how it doesn't build up. Okay, you can recognize if the time that you're committing to it is enough or sufficient, and if it's not, increase your time just a little bit. It's stuff you have to get to. These are the active, urgent things you need to do. You're going to be doing them anyway. You just can do them in a way that clears your mind and eases your stress, or you can do it in a hustle bustle, I have so much to do, my head spinning kind of way. You can choose. And I know, because I totally do both. I have totally experienced both, and I even catch myself doing the hustle bustle crazy and going, okay, stop, and recognize that I have a system and a plan to do this. So if it's not active and urgent, then it's passive and not urgent. And these are things that either need to be shredded or tossed or recycled or filed. These are things that are not urgent. You can put things in these files and do them either weekly or even maybe once or twice a month. These are not something that has any urgency to it, but these are the things that we get that start to overflow because they never are urgent. They never feel urgent. They're important because we need to be able to, especially things that need to be filed, we need to be able to find them later on when we need them. But if we never take care of them, then that's where we get these piles, or we get overstuffed huge files and we can't find things. So you want to make sure when it comes to the urgent passive files, now these action files will still be with your urgent files. So you might have the front 3 or 4 your urgent files, and then one more to be the 2 file. When it comes to shred or cycle or retoss, those shouldn't build up. That's easy to maybe have a box on top of your shredder, or have a file that it's one of the jobs that you offer to your kids every week. You know, to go in there and shred that. It doesn't. Those are things that don't need to take a lot of time. But your to file folder, your action folder, is something that might take a little bit more effort, and we're going to talk about that. Okay, so you're processed your inbox, and you've got 2 categories. You've got yes, these have actions that need to be taken, and then you have this pile over here that no, there's no action that needs to be taken. There's nothing more that needs to be done with this. It just needs to either be stored or gotten rid of. Okay, so actually, before I move on to the no side of that, when you get to the bottom of the action file, the action files, once something has had all the actions taken, then it automatically goes into this no file. So say you're in, not file, I got to use better terminology, I'm going to confuse you guys. Okay, so if you've taken something from an inbox and you've sorted it into an action file, say it's something I needed to read. Once I've read it, then I ask myself that same question again. Does this need to be, is there an action that needs to be taken with this? Again, so this side, I'm pointing to it instead of with my, pointing with my hand as if you can see what I'm pointing at. Anyway, this section right here is repeat. You go through and it repeats. It just keeps going back like this until the answer is no. Does that make sense? Tell me if that makes sense to you guys. Do I need to explain that again? So once, like if I pick something up out of the reading, and I would, once I've done the action that needs to be taken, check, okay. Then I ask that next question again, and if it's yes, then I put it into whatever the next type of action that needs to be taken. If it's no, then it automatically starts into this side of your paper flow. Okay, so that's what we're going to start next. If there is no action, like an active or urgent action to be taken, then it's you have one more question to ask. You have to say, if there's not really any action to take, you say, is there a scenario that I need to access this piece of paper again? If it's all the actions are being taken and there's nothing else you need to do, no one needs to be responded to, you've already read it, the bill's already paid, whatever, is there a scenario where you need to access that information again? This is the reason why I'm asking you to ask this of yourself, because there isn't a blanket answer to this. It is entirely up to you, but this will help you decide if there is never a scenario, like if you, and some of you said earlier when I asked you what your issue is, you're not sure what you should keep. So ask yourself, I'll give you some suggestions as to what I think you should keep, but if you ask yourself, is there some reason I would need to be able to find this again? And again, you got to remember, so we have so many more options now because so many things are accessed digitally. So we don't have to have physical copies of everything like we used to, which is awesome for all of us, right? So ask yourself if you need a physical copy of something in the future. If the answer is no, then you go down to this. If there's no scenario, I put none, no scenario at all that you would need, then you decide, do you want to shred it or do you want to recycle it? Shred, the reason I have 2 different ones of this is because if it has account numbers, if it's mail that has you, has a form to fill out like credit card applications or things like that, or maybe it's something that you're getting rid of out of your long-term storage. Those are stuff with sensitive information. I like to shred. I don't shred everything with my mailing address on it. That's public information. Someone can look at my house and get my mailing address. I mean, that's pretty public. It's not going to do anybody good unless they have other information. But if it has an account number or has other sensitive information that can be used, or where things can be filled out in your name or ordered in your name or different things like that, that is something I like to shred and get rid of my personal information from. So that's the difference, why there's the two of those, toss or recycled. Lots of things can just be recycled. Some things need to be shredded just for a security reason. So if there is a reason you would want to access it, then you're going to go to the storage files. And there are two types of storage files. So this is nothing that needs to be done. So if it's going to be on your tabletop, if there's still stuff that needs to be done to it, if it is ready to be put aside, there's nothing else needs to be done to it, but you need to keep it in case you need it later on, you're going to sort it into two different categories. It's either a quick reference, something that you're going to need to access soon, whether it's in the next month or within the next couple of years. Or it's something that you need to keep permanently. It's either necessary or sentimental. Okay, so let's talk about the quick references really quick. Are you guys all still with me? Oh, thank you, Colette. I misspelled permanent. Well, there you go. It's permanent. Anyway, that's what that means, even if it's spelled incorrectly. Quick reference, temporary, is the files that contain all documents, notes, statements, bills, etc., that may need to be accessed in the next next month to 2 years, but not stored permanently. So these are going to, your quick reference or temporary files, these are going to be those month files. So you're going to, after your action files, so if you were using a file drawer for all of them and you didn't have a tabletop action file or wall-mounted action files, you'd have your action files first, and then you would have 12 months for 2 full years. So you'd have January, February, March, April, May for odd years, and January, February, March for even years, and you'd have them just back to back, okay? In your monthly files, this is what goes in the monthly files, okay? So if you get notes from a team or sport, you put, or school notes, you put the note either in the month that you received it, or if it is something that you need to access for, say it's for an event that's coming up, or a team party, or a school event or something, put it in the month that that is going to occur, so you know where it is when you need it, because it'll be in the current month. If you get it today, say you get it at the beginning of the school year or something, or you get it at the beginning of the semester or at the beginning of the sports season, and that particular file gets moved, you might miss where you put it. So put it in the month that it needs to be accessed. So if you need the information for when it comes up, that's the month you'd put it in. You might put invitations or events in the month that it occurs. Travel plans. I know oftentimes I like to print off confirmation emails or things like that I am worried that I'm not gonna be able to pull up if I know I'm going somewhere that might have spotty service or something like that. I might like to have paper versions of them. Or if I lost my phone, or so, if something happened. When it comes to travel stuff, we always are a little over prepared. So we do paper copies of things as well as have digital versions of them, because you just never know. And you don't want to be left hanging. So if you have travel plans or documents like that, bills or utilities, instead of having a category where you have a folder that has every single bill or utility, if for just one category, you just put whatever you have for that particular month. And again, super awesome that most of those we don't even have to keep paper copies of anymore. But some, I know some things you do want to have. I know, like, we have a lot of people on a phone plan, so I like to print those off because I have to reference it and kind of write it out, what everybody's portions are and stuff on my phone bill. But that's the only bill like that happens, that has that option, or I have to have that option for. But instead of keeping a giant file that ends up building up of year to year to year, I just put it in whatever the current month is. You put the bills in those files. It could be statements. So if you have investments or things like that, that you get quarterly statements or monthly statements or things like that get sent to you. I know a lot of times with investments, they'll send you like what the, what the profit loss types of statements are, and they don't just do that digitally because they are multiple, papers of that. Put it, instead of keeping it again, and don't keep it in a file categorized by the investment, put it in the month, because the reason you do it this way is as you, when you're done with the current month, so say January has gone by and everything is, no, hang on a second. In the first of the year, sorry, I'm about to confuse you. So at the beginning of the year, you can start moving files from the back of your, so you have, like this is an odd year, right? 2019. So the front of your file cabinet would have all the months for this particular year. When I get to December, I'm going to move all of 2018, and I'm going to bring them to the front. And as I get to each month, I'm going to take everything that was out of it, which is now 2 years old. So when I hit January, I'm going to take everything that is 2 years old out of the January file, and I'm going to ask myself, is there any reason I need to keep this? So this is going back up to the no. Is there reason I need to keep this? And most things like statements, any of these things, these temporary stuff, 99.9% of the time, the answer is no. It's just time to shred and get rid of them. So the way you rotate, that's the right word, rotate these 2 years automatically cleans the file out. When you file everything by category, so say you have a file for each one of your bills or each one of your investments or each one of your statements or each one of, that type of thing, then you have no way of that ever cleaning itself out. You just end up adding to it, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and your filing cabinets get stuffed, and it becomes this overwhelming project. If you keep it all within months, which is, it's easy to reference, it's easy to remember, part of the system that works, it's easy to access. You can be like, oh, I need to look at January's, I need to look at the last years of this thing. They're all right there, of this particular bill or this particular statement. They're all right there in the months that they were received. But because you rotate them, and when the file hits the front, you just take that, the old stuff out, say, is there any reason I need to access this in the future? If it is, then put it into the permanent storage. If it isn't, then you shred it or toss or recycle it. And once the month has gone by with the current stuff, you take that file and you put it in the back of all the months, so that all of those 2 years. So you put it in the back. So at the current month with the current information, you put that full file in the back of the filing cabinet. So it's 2 years away, right? It's exactly 2 years away. Does that make sense? I think I might have just really confused you. Everybody, tell me, let me hear if you have any questions about that before I move on. Any questions about the 12-month rotating file? Yes, you have 2 sets of 12 months. You have 24 of those 30 to 40 files are the monthly files. So you have an even year and an odd year's worth. Because most things you only need to keep for 2 years. So when it comes to bills or statements or anything like that that you possibly need to keep, you would only, the max you would ever have to keep those is 2 years. If a problem or issue hasn't come up within the 2 years, it's probably not going to come up. So that, I mean, there's rare things like maybe you have medical things that might be going longer and longer. So your months are filed in years back to back. So Colette, you're asking, so your months are filed back to back, not January, January, February, February, not like that. It's January through December, odd years, because we're in 2019, and then you have a January through December that's going to be for either, right now it would be for, you would have all your 2018 things in that. Does that make sense? And okay. And when you are done putting things in for the current month, you take that full current folder and then you just put it in the back of the 2020s, right? Or the 2018s, so that it just kind of all moves forward. You're just kind of going like this every single month. And when the file gets to the front, you empty it and get rid of the stuff, and then then you added the new things for that particular month. So it's a constantly rotating and self-cleaning system. You don't have to over-categorize. Changing from categorizing to the action that needs to be taken and the monthly files, those two simple things will clear so much of your paper trouble away. Seriously. Like, just those two little elements, if you get nothing else from this, those two things are so huge. Okay. The other temporary files that I like to have it is a totally different mindset. You're right. And it is huge, but it is something that will make it so it doesn't, build up. It actually moves you through your system. I'm losing track of my time. Let's look at my time. Oh, dang it. I told you I was hoping I'd get done early, but well, we'll be on time at least. Anyway, the other temporary file that you're going to use, this quick reference temporary file, is going to be your current taxes. So you might have a file that you put all of the things that you need to store for this current year's taxes. These are not where you put your already filed taxes. Those are in permanent files. This is the stuff that you would need to add to your tracking, or once it has been added to your tracking, because that's an action file, right? Once they've been added to your tracking, however you track for taxes, then you can stick them in there to be held for when you actually file your taxes. So this is temporary, and this is something that you would clean out each year as you get your taxes done. Okay, so any questions on the temporary files? Any more? Are anybody still with me? No, Colette is. You asked some questions. Anybody else? Yes, Andrea, the current month is in the front. Yes, current month is in the front. Once that's full, you put it to the back. The file that comes to the front is emptied, and you put the new stuff, any new stuff that comes in that month. Okay? All right, so if it is not something that's temporary that you need to look at in the next 30 days to a year, then it's something that you are going to be storing on a permanent basis. And this is where people get stuck, where people are like, what do I have to keep, and how long do I have to keep it? And what do I need to do with it? This is going to be, you need to keep less than you think, which is awesome. But there's two categories of permanent storage. There's either necessary storage or sentimental storage. We talked a little bit about the sentimental storage. Let's go through it just really quick. There's one question you need to ask yourself when it comes to sentimental things. Do you want it to display it, or do you just want to keep it stored for posterity? Is it something that just is special to you, you want to keep it, or is it something you need to display? If you need to display it, make sure you have some place that you display things, whether it be a bulletin board or your fridge, or maybe a frame for each one of your kids that gets to put things up on a certain area for each one of your kids. It's totally up to you, but make sure you have kind of a scenario of where you display things so that you know that's where they go. It's not something that you're like, oh, I got to find somewhere to make them feel special. You know, that's why it was on the tools list. It's optional, but I like to have it already planned so you know you can just put it right up there. And when that starts to get full, you can decide, is this something I want to keep? If it is, then you can just come here and say, do I want to store it digitally or do I want to store it physically? So when it comes to sentimental things that you're done displaying and you don't want to have it displayed, it could be things your kids bring, but it could also be, you know, an inspiring handout you get, or something cute that you find that you're like, oh, I want to remember this, or something you print off that you want to, you know, hang up for inspiration or use in your sacred space or something like that. When you're done with it, and if you're done displaying it and you're ready to ask yourself, do I want to keep this? The answer can still be no. And if it's no, you can throw it away or do whatever. If you do want to keep it, you have to ask yourself, do I want to store it digitally or do I want to store it physically? Okay. And these are this is the only really major decision you need to make. If you are going to store it digitally, and I would highly recommend storing as many things as possible digitally, because it's so easy to store things digitally, and especially those millions of projects or you know, cute pictures kids paint or color and stuff that are oddball sizes and are hard to store. They never stay together well, you know, they deteriorate over time, and it just ends up filling boxes, and kids don't care about them as much as we think they care about them. Anyway, so, but if you let them know that we're going to take a picture and we're going to put it in your digital art file or something like that, I would suggest creating a file by person, a digital storage by person. If you take pictures with your phone, it's really awesome to just do something free like Google Photos or something. They have, they have up to, I want to say, is it 30 gigs or something that they offer free, and up to 100 gigs costs you $2 a month. That's so ridiculously cheap. Anyway, I would create an album for each kid, or for yourself. Maybe it's inspiring quotes. That you know, create your own little album on your Google storage, your Google Photo storage, that automatically backs it up. You don't have to store it on your phone or anything like that. You don't have to take room on your computer, but you have cloud storage that you can use. And I suggested a format for keeping track of those, so you don't have to come up with how you're going to find them. Make a file on a digital file or album for each person, and then when you take a picture of something, type the title in with this same formula. Do the year first, then a space, then a 2-digit month and a 2-digit day, or just the 2-digit month. You don't have to have a day. And then kind of just a little quick brief description. That way it'll automatically sort things chronologically. And if you follow the same format all the time, it'll be very you know, organized, and you'll have everything chronologically. You won't have to remember what age they were. You won't have to remember, you know, what, why you kept it or anything like that, because you can, you know, you can look at it and be, I don't know how many times I've opened a box of kids' artwork or something, and I'm like, why did I keep this piece of paper? But ones that I've written saying 3 years old, and this is what they said it was, those are, I'm like, oh, I can tell why I kept that, because that's hilarious as a 3-year-old saying that this is what it was. And when you're doing it digitally, if you take that picture, put that date, you know how old they are, and you can say what they said it was, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so funny. And it's under the person's file, so you're not worried about whose it is, what kid it belongs to, or anything like that. And when it comes to inspiring quotes or handouts that someone's taken time to do, and you're like, oh, this is so cute, I want to keep it, take a picture of it. You don't have to keep everything. If it's something that you want to physically store, like I talked about with the special boxes, that's where I would suggest doing that. I would suggest reducing that so you can have just 1 or 2 storage special boxes, I'd recommend each person in your family have a physical special box, and it makes sure they have lids. Something that really can be contained, but also that is out and easy to access, because remember, if it's easy to put away, you'll actually put it away. If it's hard to put it away, you'll make a pile. Okay? It's not about getting it, retrieving it afterwards. It's about putting it away. That's what you need to make easy. Okay, when it comes to necessary files, these are going to be the very back of your filing cabinets. And you don't need a ton of them. You need a file for each member of your family. You need a file for warranties, or, you know, like when you, those things that you get with appliances or stuff like that. You do not need a separate file for all of these, okay, when it comes to warranties. You need one file for originating documents for accounts, not monthly statements. So when it comes to bank accounts or credit card accounts or anything like that, whatever originating documentation you need to have, or you've had for those, put them all in one category. You don't need a separate file for all of them. You probably have, what, just a few. Even if you had a ton, maybe you had 10 different kinds of accounts. It's not that hard to flip through 10 pieces of paper to find the one you need. You just need originating information. You don't need monthly statements. Those monthly statements you only need, you put for your bank accounts or your credit cards or different things like that. If you hold physical statements, keep those in that self-cleaning, rotating 12-month files, because you don't need them further back than 2 years. But you do always need to keep originating documents. So those are when you opened your bank account, the information they gave you, or, you know, if you opened a credit card, the originating documents that say all the terms and conditions, or, you know, any other kind, maybe it's a savings account or an investment account. All of those accounts, originating documents. If you have multiples of a certain category, so maybe you have investments, so it could be originating investments and it could be credit cards, but don't have a file for each single one, each credit card or each investment. Does that make sense? It's not so much information, and it's not stuff that you are rotating a bunch of. You might get an updated version, like, you know, an updated credit card agreement or an updated bank agreement or something like that. If that happens, then you take the old one out and you put the new one in, and you just throw away the old one. But you've got it, all of them in one file. You don't, because you don't need to access them very often. How often have you looked back at them? And if you don't need to access them a lot, then it doesn't have to be over-categorized. And when we over-categorize, we overcomplicate, and we make things too full, too busy, too overcomplicated. We're going simple, okay? So just put them all in one file. And then you have large purchases. Some of these you may need to have their own file just because of the quantity of paper. Like, for instance, your home mortgage. And I mean, the closing documents and things for a home purchase, that is a good amount of paperwork. So that might be a single file. But other things like rental agreements, or, like I said, investments or insurance policies, you can have all your insurance policies in one folder. You only have probably maximum 3 or 4 insurance policies. You know, you have medical, home, car, life, you know, there's not a million of them. And you have your, whatever the most current information is when you put it there. And when you replace it, when you get a new one, you just take the old one out, shred it, and replace it with the new one. So you have a self-cleaning system. And you've got all of them in the one file. When it comes to these necessary folders, remember, it's very rare. Think about the last time you went through and actually accessed these. We just store them thinking what we have to, like in some scenario. But when you stop and actually think, what is the scenario that I'm going to have to need this? It's not very likely, but you have to keep them, because these are those things that you have to have documentation. The large purchases, warranties, bank account information, taxes. These are all that, for legal reasons, you need originating documents. That's those necessary things. The other necessary category is individual family members. You want to have a file for each family member. In that person's file, you can put medical records, you can put awards, you can put achievements. If you have children that are going to be applying for scholarships and things like that in the future, put every single award that they get in there and kind of keep this resume of them in their folder. This is not where you put their artwork and stuff like that. That's in sentimentality stuff. But these are vital records, and I would always keep a copy of vital records in a file, as well as keep your others in a fireproof safe or wherever you put them in a more secure area. But copies of vital records like your immunization or birth certificate, social security number, all those kind of things. It's up to you how you want to keep those secure, but I like to have a copy of them in there as well as in, so it's easy to access. I know where they are. They're separated by kids, and that I also have the real documents that are, the legal documents versions of them in our fireproof safe. Anyway. Does that, anybody have any questions? How are you feeling? Who's still with me? Do I have anyone still with me? Let's see. Anybody have any questions? Okay, that's it. All you're doing is what pile to start on first. Okay, well, actually, thank you, Colette, for reminding me that. So I want you to get all your tools. And now that you've seen the types of breakdowns of what I've told you for permanent storage, for storage files, you'll be able to gauge how many actual files you need, okay? And I do want to say, I know a lot of you are in the party, I know in a party business, because I know a lot of you ladies are Norwex ladies, and you do direct sales through parties. If you have a business like that, you can use this exact same system, just applying business categories to them. So the active categories might be different, but you would still organize them into what's the urgent active process. And when it comes to the monthly things, that's exactly where you would put the monthly files. That's exactly where you would put your records of parties or order forms tracking or things like that would still rotate through those 2 years. And that's only if you feel like you need to keep physical copies of them. After that, they just end up being with part of your taxes. And oh, I didn't say that. When it comes to taxes, your permanent storage of taxes, I don't keep those in files, hanging files. I actually keep those in a file box because it ends up being way too much information, and because you have to keep 10 years of it and you have to keep all the receipts and things like that with them. So I actually keep that in a file box. It's not an active file storage. So I don't keep that in my filing cabinet that's right here. But I want you to get whatever tools, looking at this paper flow, I want you to get the tools that you need for both your personal and if you have a home business. Get those paper systems the tools that you need, and get them set up empty, okay? And then you probably have paper piles everywhere. I want you to gather your paper piles and put them in your inbox and sort them this way. I don't want you to empty all your files and put them in your inbox, but I want you to go to a file and maybe fill in your monthly files. So say if you have all your filing cabinet by bill, type of bill or something like that, say go and pick up your bank statements, your bank file, and if you have printed statements from for the last 2 years, go and sort them into the year files, and anything that's left, you take your current file and sort them into your new system. So anything that's left over, you get to get rid of. If it's not something that's an originating document or a vital long-term purchase, you don't need to keep it as a long-term. You only need to keep 2 years worth. So if it doesn't fit into the 2-year file, or it doesn't fit into one of the necessary categories, then you can shred it. And that is really easy. You don't have to be thinking about every individual thing. If it's not something you have to keep for taxes, or it's not, you know, and we have that all mapped out on this one sheet of paper, everything, all you have to do is focus on the next question that you need to ask. And I hope I made this really clear when it came to the simple question you need to ask, and when, depending on the answer, you just take the very next step. Don't look at this as overwhelming. I know the system, this is an easy one to actually set up. It's just, it feels overwhelming because you probably have piles and piles and tons of paper, or you wouldn't be interested in looking at this. But set the system up first, get the materials, set the system up, and sort the things that you need, that you already have, into this current system based on these criteria. And if it doesn't fit these criteria, it's not necessary, unless you have something unique and you need to ask about that and you're not sure about it. If you have some unique aspect to your business or something like that, feel free to ask any questions now, or ask on the Facebook group if you need to. And it should be something that is really all inclusive and should run incredibly smoothly. And you don't have to worry about another coming up with a new system, coming up with a new way of organizing. You'll never have to do that, because your these files will self-clean. Oh, you know what? I didn't actually mention something. One more thing. So sorry. I keep telling you guys I'm going to be done. I'm going to just really quickly go over how often you address these different things, just to make sure. I've mentioned it as I went through, but I want to make sure you have like a list of what you need to put into your planner or productivity tool, okay? So your inbox needs to be addressed 1 to 2 times a week. Your action folders need to be addressed at least once a week. You can do it more often if you want. Your passive action folders need to be, those are your active action folders, at least once a week. Your passive action folders need to be addressed on a monthly basis, okay? Your temporary files are automatically self-rotating, so they never need to be specifically addressed. The only thing you need to remember to do is to rotate the front month and put it in the back. And when you move the next one comes to the front, that you empty it out. And so that you have an empty folder for the current month. That makes sense? I'm doing that backwards. I feel like I said that, and I think I'm doing that. Well, anyway, that will work, even though I think that might be backwards of what I think I'm doing. But anyway, yeah, empty it out, move it to the back. No, move it to the back full, empty it when it comes to the front. That's right, okay. Move it to the back full, empty it when it comes to the front. So those are self-rotating, don't need to put them anywhere except to make sure you rotate it once a month. And then when it comes to the permanent folders, you could annually look through those to make sure they have the most current information. Most of them, you won't have anything new. It's pretty much the family member files that you're gonna want to sort through, because those are the ones that'll get full. You can look through and, you know, depending on what records, some old medical records or stuff like that, you might wanna still keep. There may be ones that you realize you have duplicates of. You might wanna put once a year to go through those necessary folders, but it's not gonna be overwhelming because there's not gonna be tons in them. Okay, so make sure you have those things in your planner, but other than that, it will flow and you will never have a paper pile problem again. Have a fabulous weekend, and I will look, on those of you who are in my beta group, I will look forward to seeing you on Monday. We've got our week 7, module 6, but it's our week 7 coming up on Monday, and I will see you then. Bye.